So today, like I said, is going to be more, much more workshop-y kind of stuff. And you might think, you know, geez, Clint, why do you keep hammering home this product market fit, value proposition, target customers, and talking to customers? You know, why is this so important? I know my technology is awesome. I know it's going to sell. That's such a rookie mistake. I don't want you guys to make those mistakes. So you've got to get out. You've got to figure out what your value proposition is, figure out how you're going to test it, figure out who your target customers are, and let's get out there and hit it and see if you can actually validate that your assumptions are correct. So today, we're going to report out on your homework, so that's why I'm having you guys upload your stuff. Makes it easier. Then we're going to go through the value proposition and figure that out as best we can. Value chain, where you fit in this sort of the ecosystem of your particular product. We're going to do a little breakout session on value proposition. Got a little video for you to watch, and then do some wrap-ups and hit the streets. So it's going to be pretty quick and easy. Some of you guys hitting the streets are going to be more difficult, so I feel bad for like the cardiac guy. I mean, you could go ask people, you know, hey, how's your heart? How's it? Tell me about your heart. Is it good? You like it? Like, any problems with it? I mean, you may find somebody with like one chamber in their heart, but I'm guessing there probably won't be any of your target customer down there, you know, unless you get extremely lucky. You other guys, I think, will be able to find some actual customers. Even like you guys are killing super bugs and things like that. There's going to be like farmers down here at a market. That's why they call it a farmers market. And they're going to be. They have to make sure that their food is like safe. So they got to have clean countertops and stuff like that. Maybe they're not afraid of super bugs, but you know, they're going to have some value to add to you guys. And others, you know, we'll coach you. But my idea is go through these value prop workshops and things like that, and then talk to everybody as a team individually before we set you loose. And setting you loose means we're going to go down just down the street. I'm gonna sort of set up shop in the middle of Broadway. You guys come back and report in. So I really want you guys to get the whole feeling and the experience of doing real customer discovery and talking to these folks. And I'll give you some feedback. So we'll strategize individually before we head out and do it up. Sound good? Okay. So hopefully you guys have had a chance to type that password in. It takes 5 minutes, and then after that, upload your files, and then we'll go get to it. Okay. Everybody good with their files?
I made mine. A Google, I can't figure out how to move it into the folder.
Just plug in.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, you want to do yours first?
Yeah.
Just plug in, and then that will give me a chance to download these other guys. We got several different flavors of communities here.
You got HDMI.
I don't have HDMI.
What's the taken?
Oh, I don't have. There you go. I don't have one. None of these have HDMI. So you have to change the source, but I think that'll be better. Nobody wanted to sit on the couches. This is like prime real estate to watch the show. I may lay down now. One of these pulls out. Oh. Yeah, no, but I need a blanket. Bruce, don't you guys have like something to wrap up with so we get cozy?
A little throw or something?
Yeah, a little throw.
We can dig something off.
Alright, so I'll apologize in advance. I didn't add any pretty pictures or anything like that.
That's all right.
Alright, so my working title for this project is the Internet of Stadiums, because the general idea behind it is to use Internet of Things and connectivity technology for data collection and enabling other technologies within stadiums for logistics and augmenting the fan experience. Okay. All right. So the problem that I'm trying to solve. The main problem that I see is that professional venues and stadiums are falling behind because of what's okay. I think I run venues, so I don't know if it's gonna work. All right. Yeah. So professional stadiums are falling behind because they're not upgrading their technology in their stadium. A lot of these new stadiums that are being built, they're very focused on the architectural aspect of the stadium, but not really how they can use new emerging technologies to benefit the fans. So some proof of this is that in-home viewership is on the rise, whereas fan attendance of the stadiums is basically stagnating. It's staying about the same, and in order to combat this, stadiums are currently trying to add more premium features or premium fan experiences, like more VIP sections and things like that, to try to get more money out of the existing customers that they're already getting.
So one of the things that you're going to have to test is that assumption. Like, so you're assuming the fan attendance at stadiums is going down because they're not keeping pace with,
That's in my assumptions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem.
It's early.
Yeah, that's for me too. So yeah, in general, among people in the industry, in-home technologies are regarded as a huge threat to stadiums. So stadiums know that this is a threat, but there's not really a whole lot being done to actually address the threat. So two statistics I found online were customers interviewed at stadiums. 60% of them, the number one response was that they want better Wi-Fi in stadiums. 43% of fans said they want better traffic control. So traffic control outside the stadium for parking, and then traffic control within the stadium for the flow of people through general areas and stuff like that. So clearly there's a mismatch between what the fans need and what the stadiums are trying to offer them. So the customers, in this case, the customers who will ultimately buy the systems and the products will be the stadium owners and operators, the ones who really manage all the logistics of the stadiums, manage the day-to-day operations, and also the architects and construction firms that are building new stadiums. So the end users are going to be, in part, the customers, but also the fans. Because the idea is that some of the technology will enable stadium operators to better run their stadium, but some of the technology will also enable fans to better experience the stadium, better experience the game on the field, and better navigate their way through the stadium.
So to really figure out like who the paying customer is, you kind of got to start also with the product. So
Yeah.
yours is like, I'm just guessing, like Wi-Fi.
That's one aspect of it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it an app too? Is it a
No,
device?
it's mostly, so the main technology I was looking at is visible light communication. So basically transmitting Wi-Fi over LEDs. So because a lot of these stadiums are adopting this really high output LED lighting, it's the perfect application environment to adopt this new network that will alleviate a lot of their needs with congested Wi-Fi networks.
So your basic thing would be to offer like just a better Wi-Fi.
Yeah, better Wi-Fi, but then the better Wi-Fi would also enable more devices on the network for doing different types of data collection, for monitoring the flow of traffic throughout the stadium, monitoring the way the teams play on the fields, you could do things like HD video streaming over visible light communication, so that fans could on their phone select the viewing angle that they want or something like that. Those are just a few ideas. So yeah, there's a little bit of complication due to the fact that there's some intersection between the end users and the customers. So the market opportunity here, the total available market is 227 professional stadiums throughout the United States, and these range in size, in capacity, from 20,000 to about 100,000 people. So the served market would be the higher capacity stadiums that are really looking to innovate within their stadium, looking to be on the cutting edge of technology. And then my target market would be, I started this project with a company that I was working with over the summer called Ephesus Lighting. They're the ones building a lot of the high-end LED lighting for the stadium, and they're interested in the visible light communication technology. So my target market would be stadiums that they already have a relationship with, since they already have a reputation with those companies, so it would be presumably more easy to go in and introduce new technology to them. So the assumptions I've made when setting out on this project, the first being that stadiums are willing to adopt new technologies to stay competitive in the industry. I haven't really talked to any actual stadium owners. This is just a lot of stuff that I've gleaned from doing research online. The second being that fans are desiring a better experience at the stadium. Me personally, I know that when I go to stadiums, there's certain things that frustrate me, but maybe those things don't frustrate everybody. So that's another assumption. And then third assumption is that the pain points of the stadiums are actually deterring fans, because as I said before, the numbers are stagnating while in-home viewership is rising. So this may not necessarily mean that fans are discontented with the experience. There may just be better things at home. The fourth, coaches and stadium operators can benefit from more data collection and analysis. I guess that assumption kind of makes the assumption that the stadium operators and coaches will be welcoming to new technology. I don't really know them, so they could be, I guess, a little resistive to adopting new technologies. Fourth assumption would be that some fans prefer to view games from home for convenience or comfort. It could be that fans actually prefer going to the stadium. The fifth is that in-home technology, well, stadiums are in danger if they don't revolutionize their technology versus the in-home technology. And the sixth, this isn't really an assumption, it's just more of an ignorance on my end. I have no idea how stadiums actually operate or what the organizational structure of a stadium is. So that's one thing I'll need to find out. So the interview questions I'll ask, since we're here at the farmer's market today, I'm realistically not going to find any stadium owners or operators at the farmer's market unless I'm really lucky. But
So Vic Christopher, the guy that owns the wine bar and a few other restaurants, X and stuff like that.
Okay.
If we see him, I'll introduce you. He was like behind the scenes operations manager at the Bruno Stadium for local baseball.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's not
yeah, it's something. Yeah.
Yankee Stadium, but it's Bruno Stadium. It's the next best thing.
Yeah. So a lot of these questions that I have outlined here are really more targeted at the end user. Even though the end user, the fans, aren't the target customer, they will sort of define the customer's needs. So it'll help me to better understand the problem. So a lot of these questions just support the assumptions that I've already made. How often do you attend sporting events? What are your favorite parts about attending a sporting event? What are the most frustrating aspects of attending a sporting event? That one's going to be the most important. And then what has your experience been, if any, trying to use Wi-Fi cellular networks at a sporting event? Also, do you prefer to watch sports in a stadium or at home? If in a stadium, what value do you see in the stadium experience over the in-home experience? And vice versa, if they prefer the in-home experience over the stadium experience. And then just basically asking them if they could visualize any general improvements that they want to see within the stadium environment. And then I also generated a short list of questions to think about when I'm asking people who are actually involved in operating stadiums. So what are the most difficult parts of running a stadium or running an event? And then what is the organizational structure? And then what is it like to actually run an event at a stadium? And then I already said this a little bit, but the people I'm looking to interview are at the farmer's market, the fans who are watching or attending these games, and then the people involved in the maintenance operations of the stadiums, and then also coaches just to see if they could benefit from data analysis. That's it.
All right. Good stuff. So one of the other basic questions that everybody could ask is try to follow the money. So if you find a stadium owner, by chance, not just understanding like the org structure of the stadium, but sort of how do new technologies, how do new things get adopted? You know, like who's the decision maker? So you want to follow the money. Like people that are selling something for a hospital, it's really hard to follow the money. So we've got to figure out who's in the decision making tree and try to back that out, because that's going to be important to know for who you're going to have to go talk to.
So one thing that we've done before, and I don't know if this is the correct way of doing it, but like if I can't reach somebody who is really my target customer, I was trying to see if I could bring them a message that they may not be familiar with. So like probably a lot of people at the farmers market do watch sports. There may be a reason that they're not going to the stadiums that they didn't find online.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that is that the kind of idea you use if you can't necessarily talk exactly to your target customer.
Yeah, there's a lot of influencers, end users, all kinds of things. Like I mean, it sounds cliche. Look for a guy that's got, you know, Yankees.
I mean, I didn't want to say well, but
Yeah, I mean, you see a grandma with a cane. I mean, probably not gonna add a lot. You know, I hate to be stereotypic, and I did not say that. That was Matt Cusack calling in. Matt, I can't say that. No. All right.
The other thing, though, I think you'd be surprised if you call into Netherlands or something. You probably find some good responses.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, I'm involved in this program or something like that. I think you'd be surprised. I think we got a lot of other groups that call folks, and I didn't think they have some program to talk to them. And, they really have some success there. So I think it's
Yeah, you might be able to really hit a bunch of stadiums, actually. That's a good point. And, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
just more.
Actually, you guys are on the film crew for the hockey up there, right? So maybe you could get him into some, like the hockey venue. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, throwing you under the bus there, right? Anyway, there's lots of connections. You'll be surprised once you start connecting. All right, let's get the wind guys up. Or the fluid flow torque generator.
you really didn't have the front row seat.
I know, but I might just lay down.
And down on this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I just didn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Business is a marathon, right?
It is. And there's a clicker there too, I think. It should work.
It's like the keynote presentation.
There you go.
It's the best product you're ever going to see.
Alright, so we made the continuous fluid flow torque generator, and we're aiming to provide a viable small-scale commercial residential product. So this isn't meant to replace the conventional methods or in any ways re-innovate the whole industry, but it's supposed to supplement the already existing electrical grids or electrical systems that the world has in place. And we are working on a basis of providing an ecological and affordable method to people who are maybe in different areas that don't have access to electricity, or that could use more electricity and not pay a lot more than they do right now for the conventional renewable sources of energy.
So essentially, we have to figure out our customer base, and so that was one of our biggest challenges in terms of what exactly is our customer going to look like, and more importantly, what's the industry going to look like in general too? Because we could say, it's going to just be energy in general, right? But that would be something I think would be too ludicrous, because we're not necessarily just an energy company; it's an ecological energy generator source. So we couldn't. So we found really three core customer desires that we think our assumptions underlie. Is the ecological. Is there a laser pointer on this? There is. Ecological impact in terms of people that are environmentally cognizant and they want their power supply, whatever they get, to be have a really low carbon footprint. cost effectiveness, everyone likes stuff that's cheaper, and in a business decision, which is one of our target applications, you're going to look for the most cost effective energy source. And integration and reliability. One of the best things about the products that we're looking at is in terms of big wind systems. You can't put an 80-meter turbine in the middle of a city. That's not possible. But we could, because we are able to scale our product, hopefully, it'll be able to be integrated, and also it's relatively mechanically simple relative to those ones. So it's quite reliable. And so this is kind of our assumptions. Totally took from what you hopefully get some brownie points off of that.
I love that.
So essentially, this is kind of where we put that kind of Venn diagram into words. So a relatively small physical and low monetary investment in renewable energy, something that you can easily put inside a building, on a farm, for instance. That's one of the questions we're going to ask farmers. You'll put out there. Need a supplement due to lack of access. So basically, places that are remote that don't really have a lot of energy options in the first place. We'll talk about that. And then also looking for a type of energy generator with low ecological impact, and then efficient and mechanically reliable generator. I'll pass it on to you.
So one of the first ones you said was farmers or people in remote areas. We're focusing on Alaska or northern regions where there's less sunlight half the year, mainly because the main competitor or other ecologically friendly power generation source would be solar, and solar wouldn't work quite as well. So we're looking for, there might be a niche in the market where you don't want to put up a big honking 100-foot wind turbine up there because it's far too expensive. To get a 10 kilowatt system, U.S. government said it averages around $30,000. We want to undercut that by like half if we can. And they're huge, and them being that big means that you can't have them in places that are suburban or rural, or suburban or urban, because of the homeowners associations and what do they call it, residential codes. So areas that those don't exist are areas where we could have markets. So that's why we want to talk to the farmers at the farmers market rather than just the people buying the plums. Another customer that we're looking at is farmers. Again, kind of going over that, but more specifically, right now at the farmers market, we're looking at people in the Northwest. But if we can look northeast, sorry. But if we go to the Midwest, you can see that there's a lot more wind there. And more wind means more energy generated, which means essentially a cheaper cost or a lower return on investment time for the turbine, which is going to make it more appealing. Another application is something like cell towers. It's something that needs to be high already. You can't put a regular wind turbine on it because it has a lot of force perpendicular to the wind, and we want this to be flows with the wind better because the blades turn perpendicular. So you wouldn't have to add very much infrastructure to the existing cell phone tower infrastructure. Additionally, putting another potential customer, civil engineering firms or construction companies, putting it into holes in existing buildings where previously there was nothing, now there's something that you could generate more electricity from and sort of regain the lost cost of having a honking hole or skyscraper. So I think that brings it to
So as you said, it's sort of a niche market. We're trying to enter in a place where solar isn't really prevalent because that solution is already out there and that's what most people go with. So we're trying to enter into a market where people don't have a lot of solar, where they have more wind. We're not really trying to get into the infrastructure business. We're trying to put our solution on places where this would be successful. In terms of figuring out what our market wants, the difference between this solution and a solar solution, I feel one of the big things is the aesthetic. I mean, when you're dealing with solar, it's a fairly large flat plate. It doesn't look it's not an eyesore. This solution is sort of big and bulky, so I think one of the things that we're going to have to talk about is how much aesthetic are you willing to sacrifice for reducing your carbon footprint and for saving yourself money. Also, another point is, do you care more about saving the environment or saving money? How long would it take for an investment to pay you back before you would be interested? Would you be interested if it paid itself back in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Trying to figure out that. And the last question, I think it was only 3, right? Yeah. So.
Cool.
Any questions?
All right.
You were saying that you think that users might have to sacrifice aesthetics to use it. What makes you think that? Like, you don't think you could work into a new design that make it look nice?
Well, that wouldn't be us really doing it. It would be an architect sort of just trying to design a building and then saying, yes, I also want to have it be ecologically friendly. We would like to use your product. And then they would sort of take the product and then use it to make it look aesthetically pleasing. I don't think that we would want to really get into that business of, again, making that infrastructure to make it look nice. But in terms of residential homes, I mean, if you're going to put this on the roof of your house, it's not exactly going to be pretty. So that's what I'm kind of thinking.
Why don't people buy small wind systems now? Like,
Well,
there's
it's-
stuff out there.
It's really expensive, number one. One of the biggest driving costs of wind turbines in general is actually the rotor part and the hubcap due to the fact that the material is built, and also the electrical system. But for a smaller system, a smaller DC powered system, it can get quite expensive. People have, and also a massive challenge is that wind turbines, those conventional systems, it's not necessarily the most regular source of power with the way they're set up. But because of the design that we're working with, it can be able to lower the variability of the wind input. And hopefully have a little more of a constant source of power.
Any other questions?
But I wouldn't be surprised if there are some nice articles rolling around the
Oh.
as consumers, not because of
Yeah. No, it'd be good. So yeah, if we
occasionally I do see some nice articles.
Okay. Yeah, if we see some energy folks, so there's sort of like the New York State Energy Research Group. So yeah, we'll hook you up with those guys.
Yeah, and if you can't find any of those, or if you don't spot any of those, I'd be happy to have you interview me on a nice sort of
Yeah.
I was thinking of looking for people with a little whirly gig and run around.
Look for kids.
Or the hats with the spinning
And
top.
tell them how axially they're getting a lot of force, and with yours they wouldn't get that force. So, all right, good job. All righty, let's see what else we got on tap. Come on. This is slow. All right, let's do it. And we have
A clicker for you.
there you go. All right, here we go.
Alright, so I'm going to talk about the FCAD, the front-end circulatory system device. So the problem is really there's significant inefficiencies inherent in the front-end circulation as established by the surgical procedure, and there are many long-term degrading effects that have no explanation as to why they happen. And there's no current solution for that. And some data, like I said yesterday, these patients only see maximum like 50%, maybe maximum, they could be lucky to get 60% peak oxygen utilization in the entire body. So that's a drastic reduction. And additional 1 to 3% loss every year of their lifetime. And the end-stage solution currently is a heart transplant, and there are a number of problems with that, medical complications with accepting the transplant, and all the drugs that come with it, the side effects. Also, simply supply scarcity. There just aren't enough available transplants out there, and so you'd be incredibly lucky to get one. So basically, there's no intermediate solution between these two. It's like either this or that, and that's just simply not acceptable for a lot of these people. So customers, mainly surgeons who are performing the procedure, of course also hospital management, insurance companies who will be taking care of like really paying the bill, and the patient, which is the end user. So there are a total of 1,250 patients who are congenitally born with this issue. Yeah, so that's just some perspective, and that's not necessarily everyone that's being treated. This is across the U.S. And the market specifically served are hospitals that have specialty in pediatric cardiac surgery. My target for now is OHSC, Oregon Health Science Institute, where I have a collaborator and mentor. And they see roughly 6 to 10 patients per year. So it's a small, pretty small number, but so I'm still scoping out for other institutions out there that are treating patients. Together, it'll probably be more than this, obviously. So yeah, it's a very small market, but I'm hoping to expand to other biofluid applications that require some sort of pumping need or some sort of maintenance, essentially.
So just so I know, your product is a procedure, or is it a procedure with a widget? Is there like a widget of some sort that you make?
Yeah, it's a device. So it's an implantable device that a surgeon can basically implant into the patient.
And they have these devices now, or they don't have these devices?
No, so for this condition, they don't have any device on the market currently. There are similar devices that achieve different things, different objectives. But for this specific cause, there's no solution out there on the
So
market.
this would be an implantable pump type
Yes.
thing that would go on their heart.
Yes. Yeah.
The 1250, is that a year? What's the?
That's, every year. 1,250 patients are born with the condition.
But that particular hospital only does 6 to 10 of these surgeries a year?
Yes. So it's a pretty small number, but that's just one hospital. So there are many around the nation, so definitely more than that.
Just my gut reaction is like that's not going to be a huge market. So you're right, it's a small market. So if you when you need FDA approval for something like this, which you probably do, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big cost for a small payout, you know. But you know, keep going. That's just my hunch, you know.
I mean, it's so the 1250 is like just refers to patients who are born, not necessarily all who receive treatment. So it may not necessarily be the total population we're considering. So that's one assumption. Other assumption is like insurance companies will at least in part cover the device cost, like actually at least to some significant degree to the patient for them to go with this possibility. And then also that both surgeons and patients see the value of the device and what it can do and improve. And of course, like patients, whether they value quality of life more than anything.
So I mean that is, if you go ask a patient if they value quality of life, that's a I can already tell you that assumption is correct. I mean, so that's a really easy assumption.
They value it enough to pay the cost.
Well, okay, so then you gotta when you put $1 million price tag on, you know, and then quantify what is value of life on being able to play with your grandchildren more, or, you know, something like that. So it's got to be more refined than just patients valuing the quality of life, because everybody would say, oh, of course.
Well, yeah, but it's whether like they value it enough for a trade-off.
Right. So you just got to be a little more specific in your assumptions. That's all. Just sort of quantify it a little bit, you know, one level deeper.
Okay. So one of the questions is like, what is the average number of patients who come in for this procedure at hospitals? So I know what it is for one institution, but across the board, how much they see annually, enough to justify even the market for it, maybe. How much would insurance companies be willing to cover for such a device, if at all? And then also, would would they be of value to service of patients, and that's really a market thing. But
When we'll have some breakout sessions and we'll refine these questions. You know, because you can't go to an insurance company and say, hey man, how much would you be willing to cover for this device? So you're going to have to ask more creative questions because they'd be like, $100.
Yeah, zero, right? I was thinking about this too. I think it's the flip side of it somehow on how a pricing model works for a medical device. I mean, here's something on the news, right? That this pill costs $100,000 or something. So there's some piece to that. I think you got to figure out the flip side of that to build yourself up to a cost.
Right.
Because insurance companies don't want to pay.
Yeah. Like you could go to them and say, hey, do you guys cover other sort of heart implantable devices? Oh, sure. Well, tell me about that. How does that work? Like, how do you guys do that coverage? Explain that process to me. And then that's a more open-ended question. And then they'd be able to say, oh, well, we cover 100% of this because it saves so many lives, or we don't cover any of this because of X, Y, Z. So those kind of really open questions will get you to the promised land. Okay.
So these are the people to ask. So hospital management, surgeons, and surgeons will sort of act as surrogate patients because I can't just go up to patients and like randomly ask stuff. That's creepy.
If you find a patient at the farmer's market, I'll buy you dinner. That's incentive.
I'll try hard. But considering the small amount of patients,
Yes.
that's next to no chance. There's no such thing as free lunch.
We can find somebody. We'll help find somebody from MVP out there.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. Then you'll get dinner.
I'm working on that now.
Of course, insurance companies to figure out the cost. Yeah, that's it. That's all I have.
All right. Any questions from the crew?
Have you thought about like your pricing strategy at all? 'Cause I used to watch a video series on rare health diseases and monetizing it.
Oh yeah.
And they were saying you have to start with the highest price you could possibly imagine. Because if you raise prices, everyone's going to hate you
Yeah.
with rare diseases. So like, have you thought about that at all?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really early in the stage of like development right now, so I actually don't know what the actual cost breakup is going to be to produce this device, and one also to make some profit. But yeah, I think it's going to be like pretty high, relatively high, because I wouldn't say it's rare as like some other diseases out there. This is not a common problem, but it's like I don't know, mid-ground, not enough for like major biotech companies to invest in such a product. Or that's why like that's one of the main reasons why there's no product out there to serve this. So there's a reason, but my hope is that this isn't the only market for me, like specifically because it's a biofluid application. There are other potential cardiac applications that are more profitable, like general heart failures, biventricular heart failures, and things like that, that do have a bigger application. So my hope is to expand. For now, it's this particular market, just because I'm focusing on one key problem here. But I think the market's a little bigger if I look at it.
That's good. That'd be good to keep that in mind when you're doing customer discovery too. If you're thinking, okay, this is my flagship, but then I'm going to expand to these other
Because
things.
yeah, the technology I think will be applicable for multiple conditions.
Yeah, that's good.
It just needs to be customized for it. But yeah, I'm just starting here.
Just a quick comment. I think this one's a really good example to watch as this unfolds.
Yeah.
Because this is a really common issue. So you're looking at the problem and solution a certain way, but when you start talking to people like insurance companies, as he was pointing out, they're going to view it a different way. So you'll have to learn to put yourself in their head as opposed to the problem that you originally tried to solve. So that'll be, and that'll probably open up some other doors for you to make that target market larger over time. So this one will be a really interesting.
I'm new to this stuff, so.
Hey,
That's why you're doing it, right?
we all are, man. One more question?
Oh, sorry. Can I just go next, actually?
Oh, after this?
I'm updating this one, yeah.
Oh, okay, sure. All right, thanks, man. Now, I don't want to gloss over, you said you watched a TV series on pricing policies of rare disease treatments? What the hell channel are you watching, man? Is that real?
One of the late nights where you're watching a weird YouTube series, I don't know how you got there.
All right. We gotta have TV night over here, man. All right, let's get the solar siding guys up here.
All right, good morning everyone. My name is Michael Hughes. I'm a professor in the main department up at RPI. This is Duncan Smith. He's a graduate student, PhD student, and this is Dave Polanco. He works down at the Centrifuge Lab. He's actually a staff member at RPI, and we are the solar siding team. I'm gonna not do too much talking, but let these guys go.
All right.
So the problem that we discussed yesterday was more the overall problem in the industry. The problem that we're addressing today is what our customers see. So if you own a business, I mean, the first problem is you have to pay for electricity. You're going to be running something inside this enclosure. So there's no really cost competitive solution right now for on-site production. I mean, the U.S. government props up solar, props up wind right now, but that won't always be the case. As far as matching, another problem that we face is actually matching the amount of production to the amount of consumption. So one issue that also exists, and even exists for somewhat for this product, is you have no idea how much power you're going to use until you actually start up a factory and you trend it. So you have some levels of predictors, but you almost always want to undershoot what your target is going to be. That way you're not producing too much power. You created, or you bought this $2 million system, and now you're not using all of the energy. As far as the cost, architectural and engineering firms are the ones that are really going to be the ones that have to be convinced, because in the end it's going to drive their proposal costs up. So right now, they don't want to include the cost of a solar system into it, because when you bid to an end customer, you're really going to want to have the lowest cost solution. So if you can sell a building for $1 million versus $1.5 million, I mean, clearly the customer is going to take a $1 million unless it's the initial desire of the customer. And building owners do want photovoltaic, but going back to the cost, it's a pretty expensive system, especially with initial costs. As far as customers, as we talked about, architectural and engineering firms are really going to be the ones who are going to be our primary customer, because we're going to be going more towards the new build market. And even when they're making changes on these existing buildings, it's usually an architectural firm that'll take over a major overhaul or remodeling. Some examples of these are CHA, SMP Architects, Architects Orange, and then here we also have just a few of the conferences and expos where these A&E firms will be.
So this is a customers, potential customers, and who actually we're going to interview, kind of all smushed into one slide.
Yep. So as far as building owners, obviously they're the ones that are going to be paying the bills in the end. Somebody like Golub Corporation in Schenectady, with the president Neil Golub. And then finally the building envelope distributors, because ultimately they're going to be the ones that have to sell this as well. So we're going to be replacing existing siding with this new solar siding.
And then also, I mean, this list will expand, I guess. I know I just, my uncle works at Architects Orange, and then I have like a cousin in SMP Architects, so these are just kind of places where we have names, and then also just a kind of a bunch of trade shows that we were able to find that are pretty specific to our product.
Yeah, ultimately our customer in these big companies are really going to be the project managers associated with these builds or associated with these upgrades.
And then so the market opportunity that we're looking at kind of within the commercial and industrial sector, our TAM, our total available market, is the value of the global facade market. So that's going to be like $180 billion a year. Then kind of honing into serviceable available market, the building integrated photovoltaic or BIPV world market is $2.4 billion per year. And then kind of going even more specific, I mean, it's a little tough to quantify right now, but specifically the BIPV walling market in the United States is about $480 million a year.
So you guys are already, you're sort of limiting your market to things that architects would design and stuff. So you're not talking about like a barn or somebody's house.
We're not
tower or a cell tower or something.
We're not at all writing that off, but we just when we were doing ICOR over the summer, we were kind of running into this issue where we were so broad that we could get like a couple people here, a couple people there, and so commercial and industrial seems really interesting. So we just wanted to hone in for these 5 weeks, but we're not at all writing off the residential sector or other options. But it just seemed like a good idea to focus for just these 5 weeks here. And so some of the assumptions that we're depending on here is that architectural and engineering firms and building owners, they want solar. So I mean, you'd think that if you can provide a cost-effective solution, that people will always want it. But there's also a lot of other factors that go into making a solar decision. And so kind of learn about that. Also that architectural and engineering firms are functionally able to offer a solar product, because I know we'd spoken to a couple of architects and they were saying that they could contract somebody out or they could do this and that, but there could be elements that are adding to cost or complexities that we don't fully understand within that yet. Also, when we were interviewing residential customers, we were running into the issue that residential customers really don't care that much about their electric bill. And so we can talk to building owners and see, when you increase the scale, does that become a significant expense that people really care about? And then this is a little potentially abstract, but essentially, from my work in solar, I know that a big problem within the solar industry is that if you go to an area where the grid does not accept excess electricity, that can really hurt solar, and that can really drive the cost up. But I want to, and we want to kind of ask to see, are people aware of that? Is the intermittence of solar an inconvenience? They're probably just looking at, I would think they're just looking at the price point, but there are other advantages that are associated with, here you kind of got on the bottom consumption throughout the day. That's what the grid sees, and then you got where solar actually goes. And so if we can fit the area under the curve, are people aware of that? Is that something we can mention without, because I know speaking with solar companies, they, obviously they know, and that's a huge thing for solar companies. Is that something that building owners are even aware of or even care about at all? And so might need to kind of refine that to be more general.
Yeah, sure. So perhaps some perspective is lacking here. We didn't provide good perspective, but when we were talking to architecture and engineering firms, the fundamental thing that we're trying to offer is essentially a building envelope product that architects and building owners would put on their building envelope. In order to get a product incorporated into a building, you need an architecture firm that's actually willing to use that product and knows how to use it. So all of this information and questions
that we're asking here are actually based on having an architecture firm know how to use this product, understand how to use this product, and be willing to put it into their proposals because it's a competitive process for getting a commercial building project. Essentially, many architecture and engineering firms submit proposals, right? So part of our angle is we'd like to understand this proposal process better so that maybe we can make these proposals lower their cost, make them more attractive. And then in the weeds here, sometimes when there's not net metering, this is essentially the curve that solar produces, no matter really where you are in the nation. And this blue line is kind of how people use electricity. If you can't do net metering, you have to fit this same shaped curve under here so it looks really small, right? So what that ends up meaning is if this curve is really small, that ends up only being sometimes a small chunk of the total electricity that a building is going to use, and so solar is no longer even attractive. Our product is actually able to produce power more evenly throughout the day, so we can fill the area under this curve better, providing a solution for solar energy that sometimes, isn't available with typical solar panels. So it's kind of getting into the weeds there, but if someone knows about solar design, we want to know if that's one of the issues why they didn't choose solar.
We'll definitely interview people in different areas that may, different. It almost varies state by state, whether you have net metering or you don't. So interviewing people about solar in those different areas. And then just some questions that we were going to ask, just questions to kind of figure out what are their biggest considerations, their biggest expenses, and what do they do to bring down their energy costs? Is that something that's important to them? And then have they ever considered solar? Have they ever been approached about solar? And then I think we still need to brainstorm just, are you familiar with net metering? That's not really a good question, but sort of just thinking of questions that can lead to answers that can kind of cover that.
Is the model on how you pay for this important in this market? So I'm just thinking from the residential side, right? You either buy it or you lease it or you get a discount on your electric. Are there different models that you would use here as well? Or is it strictly, you're buying siding for the building?
Yeah, well, so with conventional solar, especially with large solar systems, a lot of times you're going to have a power purchase agreement, and that can take a variety of forms, but essentially the person that's putting up the solar doesn't necessarily have to own the system. A different third party can own the system, and then they can pay the third party. There's there's a lot of different options, and it gets very complex. Just kind of, there can be different agreements. You can also do a solar lease where you just pay a little bit, or you can just buy the whole system. And that's usually, buying the whole system is going to be the best bang for your buck if you can do it, but that's very hard. And so if we can mix up that equation a little bit and say, all right, well, yeah, you're going to have to shell out this large expense, but it's also, the walls of your building, then now maybe that initial cost makes more sense, and then you can give yourself a more profitable option, I guess.
That cost structure and how they pay for it is exactly what we want to know. Like, is there a cost structure that's prohibitive to them? They don't like it, and can we offer something that's different? So we don't know that answer, but that's something that we want to find out so that we could create a cost structure that makes more sense for them. Maybe the cost structure right now is just not flexible enough for solar, but that's something we want to find out.
All right.
Cool.
Good stuff. Get up. Let's do the wooden chapstick. Well, I like to talk about my product. Yeah, he just bad timing on that one. Oh well. Yeah, here we go. Oh, there you go. Yeah. You got this kind or HDMI?
Oh, I need to.
Oh, this one here. Oh, I got it. There you go.
Okay, so just a reminder from yesterday, I'm also a faculty member at RPI, and my idea was taking this technical accomplishment that I developed in my research, which is adaptive simulations, and exploring the options to basically start something like a software company. Okay. So today we're going to talk about the problem, the customer, and some assumptions that I've made so far. The problem as I see it, right, is saving companies who are doing typical mechanical design, right? So designing an F-150 Raptor, designing a Stryker fighting vehicle, satellite, something like that. Save them money, right? Because iterative prototyping and testing is expensive, right? And doing the design virtually, basically, is the value as we see it, right? All right, so there's some assumptions that I've made, right, that the adaptive simulation capability is going to help lower their computational expense and therefore overall cost, right? So the assumption is that computational expense right now for them is a limiting factor, right? And with more simulation capability, they would do more better things, right? So I'm not really sure if those things are true, but looking to find out, right? And this other thing, they may want to save the personnel expense and having to create their own simulation software in-house, right? And that's basically what they're doing now. Okay, so we're gonna find out about these, right? Okay, right, and then, so as I see it right now, basically my customers are managers at these places, right? So typically the design group manager is gonna get a problem, right? So at JPL, there's a group called Robotics and Mobility, right? That group gets called to do the dynamic analysis and other stuff for the group doing the design, right? So instead of calling an in-house other manager, hopefully they'll call me, right? And these are just some examples. There's more. There's basically three categories as I see it, right? Aerospace defense, autos, mining equipment, Caterpillar, John Deere. I kind of like lump all those together. And then there's also the molecular angle that we talked about yesterday, right? So national labs. Okay, so where are these folks going to be? There's actually this text isn't showing up very well. And how much do they spend are two other things we want to sort of talk about. And first we'll talk about how much they spend, right? And military, an estimate right now is something like $8 billion in modeling and simulation, right? Autos, I couldn't find a good number last night, but it's in the billions, probably close to the 8. And molecular simulations is something like $4 billion being spent there, right? So how does that look? Oops. So we can zoom in and talk about these. But how does that look sort of for my market, right? The total market, I would say something like in excess of 10 billion, right? And maybe, so this is all modeling and simulation, so that includes CFD, FEA, all those things, fluid dynamics, finite element analysis. So if we cut this down to just the type of analysis that I would do, maybe it's a third, right, roughly, right? And then, how much of that third is actual my target, right? So I think I would forego the ground vehicles, the autos, and stuff like that because simply it's easier for them to over-design it than to do the analysis to the fidelity that they would need my products in, right? But for military and aerospace, they, one, are not caring so much about profit, right? They want to push their capabilities forward. And for aerospace, over-designing means I'm putting heavier stuff in space, so that's actually probably more expensive than my product, right? And biosim, well, we need to use simulation as a tool here because you cannot actually physically investigate and prototype molecular level reactions, right? So basically my target market as I see it is something roughly like half of a third of 10 billion, right? Okay, so
just real quick, so these guys are already spending, tens of billions of dollars on simulation.
Right.
But your whole play is to do a simulation to get them to stop building prototypes.
Well, so to have them build less, right? To increase that simulation capability, so they spend more really on simulation, or get more simulation with the same money, and then do like less prototyping and testing. Yeah.
All right. So okay. Well, I mean so you have to include that as one of your big assumptions. Do they want to build fewer programs?
Yeah, right.
And do they trust? They're already spending billions of dollars in simulations already. Why the heck are they still building prototypes? I mean, that sounds like a lot of billions, So
yeah.
So find out, do they want a higher quality simulation, and do they want to stop making prototypes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think there's a trust. So there's also like a trust issue. They're still building the prototypes because they don't fully trust the simulation yet, right? Okay. So absolutely. All right, so where will they be? There's actually a military modeling and simulation conference coming up November 27th in Orlando. And there's also the International Conference on Modeling and Simulation in Paris next summer, right? So most of these, certainly the autos, happen in January. We can definitely get there too. And so assuming that I connect with these folks, what are we going to talk about? Right, so basically, what are your computing resources, right? And what's the cost of maintaining these things, right? And what's the cost of keeping relevant, right? So you got to pay someone to go to conferences and learn stuff and come back and build that into your own simulation capability, right? What would you do with more computing capability, right? So let's just say you had infinite computing. Would you actually use it to make a better product, right? And what problems do you wish you could solve from a modeling and simulation perspective right now that you can't, right? And
so when we'll do the breakout sessions and stuff, and we'll really figure out if this is getting at what your value proposition is.
Yeah, right.
So
This
that's
is
what
just the
you're
first.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
what you're trying to do.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Any questions?
Questions from the crowd? All right. You got a question?
Why can't they just do it in-house?
They could, right? But then they're going to hire a bunch of folks and write their own simulation and then validate it in the church, right?
It'd be mostly at one time.
Yeah, the thing is right now it's a one-time thing, right? And that's why they don't have to do that simulation.
All right. So the problem that I'm working on is a lack of options for consumers who are interested in purchasing lip balm containers. And right now, the way that I am thinking of getting involved is with a wooden option. Although, the shape as well is something that I've been thinking about. Right now, I'm thinking of the classic shape for a container, but that could change. So my customers, I'm thinking, would be somebody who cares about the aesthetics of the product that they're using. So of course, people who are just using a chapstick container for the sole purpose of moisturizing their lips are not going to care about the texture or the visual of the product. I want to target people who are going to care about the product having connotations that it's natural, that it's friendly to the earth, that it's sustainable. And so that would definitely be part of what my company would be. There would be an emphasis on sourcing the wood in some sustainable way and getting that message out to the consumers as well, and things like that. It would be people who are going to have more money to spend, because this would be a product that would hopefully have a premium vibe to it. It would be something that would appeal to people who have the extra money to spend on fashion and on an environmentally friendly product. And I'm thinking that there would be female consumers because the market so far, if I go back a couple, with the success of the rounded container, that's almost exclusively bought by female consumers. And that so far is one of the few major innovations in the market that I've seen that's had success. So the global cosmetics market is enormous, as you'd expect. And even the lip cosmetics market in the United States is pretty huge as well. So I looked around at the companies who are in the US market right now, and these sales actually aren't exclusive to the United States, but I think that their primary consumers are in the United States. I have to double check that. It's been tough finding research on Evolution of Smooth, which is a company I'm most interested in. They're a private company, and as I said, they're what I want to look at in terms of how do you break into a market where there has been standardization among the products, and maybe nobody else has wanted to try to break into it, or other people have tried to break into it and failed. I don't want to go head to head with Evolution of Smooth, because my product has to do with more the visual appeal and the texture as opposed to the shape, and they have sort of like a fun product where I don't think that a wooden chapstick container would necessarily be fun to use for the consumer, but it would be maybe more like a status symbol, a way to show people that you care about the environment, and a way to just be happy, like a fashion choice, as opposed to getting some sort of, I don't know, I guess the difference between fun and fashionable. I'd say there's definitely a line there. So I'm figuring out right now what my market would be. I'm not sure. I would think that I would want to maybe slice off some of the market from a company like Burt's Bees, who is marketing themselves as a natural product, but what their product basically is the blend that they use for their balm. So that would be another important dimension to my product, which is what is my blend going to be like, and how is it going to be natural, and how is it going to compare in terms of effectiveness for moisturizing lips, because at the end of the day, that's another really important part, which is how effective is the product. So I don't really know if consumers want a wider range of products. They might be perfectly happy with what they have right now. That rounded container that EOS created, that might be enough for everybody. So that's a major assumption. I don't know if people would consider this container fashionable or not. I'm making an assumption there, a pretty major assumption, because it's aesthetically pleasing to me. I really haven't asked anybody else. I don't know how this is going to hold up. I don't know if it's going to get scratched from long-term use. I don't know if it's going to snap in somebody's bag. So I don't have a background in product design or really a science background at all, so I'm not sure what materials I'd be using, the durability, anything like that. And this is a very basic assumption. I don't know. I do know that a wooden lip balm container can be manufactured for a very cheap cost from yesterday's presentation, where I showed a couple screenshots where there are manufacturers in China making these really, really cheap products, but that's not the product that I think an American consumer would be willing to pay for. And I have no idea what the market is going to look like by the time I would hopefully get this around to production. because this isn't, you know, a revolutionary idea. This is something that anybody in the room at one of these companies who are thinking of innovations could come up with themselves, and they could get it ready to launch much faster than I would be able to. So these are the questions that I'm thinking about speaking to the people at the farmers market with. And I would like to talk to people in general because I haven't really done any interviews at all for this product. So I want to know what everybody thinks, how everybody uses lip balm, male and female, old and young. And I want to sort of hone in on my target market and see if I want to sort of try and understand the sort of broad strokes of consumer sentiment towards lip balm in general, how they use it, if they have any problems with it, and then try and get closer to who I think would be using my product.
Awesome. One of your pillars of your value proposition is really about being eco-friendly and stuff like that. You're going to have to test that assumption by talking to people too. So, you know, go to the farmer's market, talk to some people. Hey, I mean, don't ask them if they get their lips chapped in the winter. That's an easy sort of giveaway question also. Just say, hey, you buy chapstick or lip balm, you know? Tell me about that experience and what do you look for, you know? And try to see if there's something about the environment, you know? Are you disturbed by the plastic, you know, that this is made of? Something,
yeah, that's a good question.
Something, you know, and just see if you can kind of guide them to where you need to go.
Yeah, I really like asking them, and also just maybe about how they use plastic in their lives.
Does plastic bug you at all, or, you know, that type of thing. Just real open-ended, and see if you can get to, you know, some validation. Question?
I had a couple thoughts. For some reason, I really like this idea because I find that all the time and I lose it.
You're
I
not.
was thinking maybe because it was like I wouldn't lose it. I made one.
Oh, really?
Right.
Hey.
So like that's one problem that a lot of people have with chapstick is that they lose it. I've never finished a stick of chapstick in my life.
That is very interesting. So you might find that, like in your customer discovery, you might find, yeah, I'm having a problem. I lose this shit all the time. But if it's a higher value container, you would
Like cheap sunglasses, I recommend losing, but maybe if I pay a little bit more for it, I'll keep it. The other thing I was thinking is maybe you don't produce a chapstick, the actual chapstick, but this is just a packaging solution for a company sort of environmental. But I think there's like a lot of ways to do it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that makes sense. That's definitely something to think about. I don't know who's next. We could just go.
Oh, I was gonna say, one thing you might want to keep in mind is, especially when asking about like plastics and stuff, your responses might be a little bit biased being at the farmer's market. Because
Definitely.
more sustainably oriented.
Yeah.
You might find somebody down there that's got some natural chapstick thing that they want to sell, and your container is perfect for them. You know, it's made of beets or something like that. Like it works great on my lips. I have no idea.
Yeah. So kind of going off what Clint said, have you considered just going to these companies and be like, hey, I have this container, you can put your lip on it, and it'll be sustainable. And you can advertise that.
The thing that I'm worried about is the idea that, I mean, I don't know if this would be something that they would, you know, they hear that and they think like, oh, you know, why would I buy it from you if I can just do it ourselves? Like we're chapstick, we're just going to make our own product now. And we're just going to call it like the super all natural, whatever. So it's important to me to sort of like create my own brand so that they can't just poach the idea and then have it be just as successful. I don't know if you remember the slide, I had it up briefly, where that rounded container, I showed the iterations of like chapstick and bliss sticks, and they just copied it nearly exactly. But of course, they're not just going to take all the sales from the company because they've already established themselves as having this distinct personality and this like, you know, cool.
Yeah.
All these.
Yours could actually be a brand that gets started at farmers markets. So this could be like the perfect venue for you. Yeah. Yeah, there's people make soaps and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Okay. All right, good stuff. Zone book, let's do it.
Alright, so just a reminder for everyone, I'm Josh and I'm working on Zonebook. I go to Siena College and it kind of got started there, and there's 3 other team members we have, but I'm the only one here today. So the problem was that this is a well-known problem that people might not be aware of things within their community, but more specifically than this, like this is the overarching problem, but the smaller problem is that businesses don't have an effective social media presence. Like they're kind of just there advertising, but they're not integrated part of it that's really enriching. So because of that, the customers would probably be the businesses. We put the users on there just because they're going to be like they're the end user, which is important because that's who the businesses care most about. But the businesses could pay for foot traffic, for sales, or just being on there. And another one I actually thought about just now in the early stages are the government. They could be even an early stage customer because they're doing a lot, giving out a lot of grant money, which isn't necessarily like the same as having a customer, but they kind of might look to us to help improve local tourism in certain areas in the beginning, and we can kind of survive off of that until the businesses start paying for the traffic and sales to go up. So these numbers we calculated, we have to do a lot more work because these are kind of complicated, but we took for the total market 290.7 million, which is like everyone in the US with a smartphone. And the reason we chose that is because the app really could work for any customer segment could use it. It could work pretty much anywhere in the US. But
So these are people, not money? Or
target market?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have put people.
Okay.
Target market is 290.7 million people in the US with smartphones, and we got that because Siena College did a research study and they found about 90% of people have smartphones, which the number isn't perfect, but that's what we have. And then for New York, people that live there and travel to New York with smartphones, we got 57.6 million. And then like go to college in New York or, I'm sorry, let me explain this well. Our target market is people under 30 that are in New York. So between the people that live there and travel there that are in that age range, it's about 1 million. And when we say travel, they're like on daily commute for work, internship, things of that nature. So some of the assumptions is that users will all, like be attracted to our app, which is a really big assumption because if they don't want to use the app, it's pretty much dead in the water. And that they enjoy exploring new places around them and discovering things. Like we're assuming that our target market isn't complacent doing what they're already doing. Like they have some desire to try out new places, which could be wrong. We might have to move to a different target segment. And the achievements and the reward opportunities we want to put inside the app for going to these locations will be enough for them to use the app altogether. For businesses, we're assuming that they'll pay for the foot traffic, which they might not be willing to pay for the foot traffic. They may only pay for the sales, which that's a lot harder trying to convince our users to buy something than just to go somewhere.
You know, how would you monitor foot traffic? So how would you prove it to the business owner? Hey man, pay me $1. I got 10 customers in the door. How do you?
It's in the functionality of the app. So like every time they visit a location, to earn that location, you have to take a photo in front of it. So like every time that happens. And that they want to be affiliated with certain zone books. So again, another big part of what we're going to have different is we're going to have different categories. So some of them will be top tier categories, like locations that may not even be paying us, but we want to have it on our app. So we're assuming that location will be able or have the desire to pay to be grouped with the bigger spots. We're going to ask what type of phone you have, and the reason we're going to ask that is because one of our coders said it makes a big difference. Like he's thinking of just coding iOS because it's a big task. Coding iOS and Android, it's like 2 different apps. So he wants us to kind of see if it's mostly iPhone, because that's where we want to start. What they like to do for fun already, because we have to try to figure out like how we want to gear the app and what type of zone books we want to offer from the beginning. So we want to see what they're already doing. Do they like exploring new places? Some of them might say, we just have some spots we like to go with our friends, and then we might have to change some things there. Their favorite places and what the reason is they go there. They might go to a bar because it's half price drinks or appetizers after a certain time. We have to figure that out.
We'll talk more, but you should also ask, tell me about the last time you downloaded an app. Do you have a lot of apps? You pay for apps. Like, what's that experience about?
Here's the customer segment. So we did 13 to 30. We don't plan on advertising to 13-year-olds, but you never know. Musical.ly was an app that took off with that age range, so we're not necessarily against it, but it's not really what we're going for. Exactly. Living in the New York City area or visit New York City on a commute to work, school, or internship. Enjoy exploring and using photography on their phone. and male or female. Does anybody have any questions?
Should I suggest another option, maybe to ask people to sort of give us a shot more direct information, is to ask them how they brand their products.
Yeah.
That will both, let you know what they want and let you know what competition they can use. And I address that from personal experience because I have to fly somewhere where I don't know the place for say 36 hours. And it's also a bit of a pain because you want to fit a lot into it, You want to make an itinerary, it's not a filler place, whereas only one resource which is dedicated to short weekend trips, it's near past 36 hours, key particular place. So, that's interesting to see what other sources people use and what they want to do.
That's great. Thank you. Either way. What did you say?
So, and even if you find something like that, it's like, oh shit, that's really similar. That's not a killer. I mean, that doesn't kill your idea. It's like, then you find out, okay, what's wrong with that app? Like, why, look at the adoption rate of that app, or find out, oh man, people have blogged about that, not doing this, or they wanted to do this, and that's perfect information for you.
There's another one called Road Trippers. This is the same thing, like, for a road trip in it, it tells you like all user review places. But like, I thought it was great. Right now they have to use 0 time.
Why? Customer discounts the first customer discovery. Like, so find out why, you did road tripping. Why didn't you like that? What happened? What was the experience like? And who knows what his reason is. So, hit it up.
Yeah, I guess it's like these kids you always put a lot of stuff into the hard copy. I just did one month road trip with you. I was in like the smallest town that I found. Yeah, sometimes.
You want to start in like marketing Boston, New York City. Keep it small because there's so much there. It's a big category. So we find like bars don't work. We can try tourist locations. That doesn't work. Business travelers. But thank you.
Just one thing, in terms of, I know you were talking about whether actually Android or iOS app, a lot of the two companies, one of them I know, they actually do a web-based service, so on your phone it comes out like an app, right? But it's based off the website, so you don't actually have to go to two separate apps for which can help simplify your bottom line based on what your staff does. And also they can access, they don't have to download an app to say,
Cool. One more.
Sorry.
Okay, so you have the liberty of kind of choosing your customer. So like some of us have for instance, I just have food managers, but you can find somebody who's selling for any type of experience. So the thing is, where is the use case the strongest? They think about like Comic-Con or people who are into anything that people are just absolutely insane for, having to travel 3,000 miles and pay $3,000 to see all the Comic-Con related stuff in New York City. Just one really strong use case to get you guys moving.
Actually, to piggyback on that, I was saying the same thing. It's similar. The biggest problem you're going to have is user adoption, right? There's 500,000 apps. So you got to figure out how to get to critical mass, right? So it's really important to figure out what that segment is that you go after so that you can get a bunch of adoption, because I'm not just going to jump on the app store and just start, looking around and finding your app. So it's finding that niche where you can start to really get some people on the platform.
It's going to be the hard part.
Yep. All right. Good job. Come on down. I don't want to touch your hand because, super bug, man.
All right, guys. So we're Diana and Mike, and we're here with our fabulous page pitch. So, as we were talking yesterday, the problem we're solving is the global antibiotic resistance crisis, and in particular, the spread of antibiotic resistant infections in hospital settings. And our customers are primary hospital administration, although because they are the ones who ultimately both write the checks and are blamed if something bad happens in their hospital, like a MRSA outbreak. But diversifying a bit for real life and today's farmers market experience, we might as well look into how restaurants, into how farmers clean their space, make sure they do not have a bacterial infection breeding up in their farm. So now, speaking of the market, the overall hospital-associated infection market in the US is roughly $40 billion, but it's kind of hard to estimate how much of that goes directly to, say, purchasing reagents versus, say, dealing with the aftermath of it or doing employee medical personnel training. So I wasn't able yet to find an exact number for the product market here. However, what we try to do is to estimate what share of the total hospitals in the States will be interested in such solutions. So we have, for the very global market, we have around 16,500 hospitals in the world, and in the States we have 5,500 hospitals. However, all the hospitals are very different in terms of how often they have to face the problems of hospital-associated infections. So most of the hospitals for which this problem is acute are either large urban hospitals, which constitute roughly 3/5 of the total hospital market, and this problem is also an issue for teaching hospitals, so the ones where they both do research and train medical students. So the large urban hospitals and a smaller subset of those teaching hospitals is the ones we want to focus on. And additional way of focusing on our hospitals of interest might be looking at overall hospital ratings, because every year they publish the reports where they tell which hospitals do really well in terms of hospital-associated infection and which underperform. So Michael, take it away with questions and assumptions.
Okay, so what are our top 3 to 5 assumptions that our opportunity depends on? So we kind of wanted to address this problem from our main customer's perspective, because obviously we have some assumptions that we have in terms of like manufacturability of our product or FDA approval or regulation control, but we wanted to talk about, focus more on the hospitals. So one of our assumptions is that a significant part of these hospital-borne infections come from antibiotic resistance, which is what we're trying to address. The second one, the hospital administration actually cares about these infections caused by antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and that they are currently using low concentrations of antibiotics to control that spread of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Also, we don't know what kind of alternatives they're currently using to treat these antibiotic-resistant bacteria and how effective they are, and if they would be willing to use another alternative solution. So what are some of the questions we'll ask to find out? Now, we are going to be at the farmers market, so we might not get a chance to ask all of these questions, and we'll probably adapt to some of our environments. But is hospital-borne infection a significant problem for you? So say if we were to run into maybe somebody that works at a hospital, or if we run into a doctor or something like that at the farmer's market, we could possibly ask that question. Ask the average person, do they care about antibiotic resistance? Maybe you run into an elderly person that's been sick before or has had one of these kind of infections and they've been treated. We want to know, what kind of solutions have they come across, or what are some of the practices that have been used to treat this? Like how do you currently handle these problems? What are the alternatives? And we would like to know, people have, obviously there are some alternative solutions to using antibiotics, but what are some of the problems with those? Obviously they're not working, and this is still a major global crisis problem that we're trying to solve. So that might be room for us to expand or possibly pivot if we need to. And I've kind of talked about this a little bit already about who we'll ask. We definitely want to talk to a couple of farmers to see how they handle, sanitation. What are some of their sanitation methods? How they handle this antibiotic-resistant bacteria in their facilities or their farms. We want to talk to past patients or victims of antibacterial resistance, and maybe we'll run into a couple of doctors. I think one of our main customers will be like maybe managers of restaurants around Troy that we could talk to and see how they handle sanitation protocols and requirements.
When you get to the point where you're talking to a doctor or an administrator in a hospital, which you're going to do that at some point, find out the buying pattern, find out what do they do now, how do they do it, how do they make that decision to do it, who made that decision, like all those, you want to try to follow the money. So,
yeah, supply chain.
Shirley, head of purchasing, was the one that made this decision on this, and, so follow that whole logic path, because that's how you're gonna have to follow that same path most likely to get your product sold.
Yeah, to add to that, I believe that it will also be a good idea for us to talk to some of these patient advocacy groups, because typically they have contacts both with the insurance side of things and hospital side of things, and a sort of, lobby a bit outside the healthcare system, but also well integrated with it. Another option will be talking to veterinarians, because typically they face the same issues, but they have much less constraints from the terms of FDA approval and stuff.
Okay. For today, there's if you look for Argyle cheese, so this area has got a lot of different artisanal dairy product producers. 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I was at Argyle cheese, and they actually had, I saw the production area, and so that would be the sort of thing would be, because they make their own and it's on site, this thing can tell you about some of the challenges they have in keeping it.
Yeah, that seems like a real bacteria cinch.
Yeah, so there's a lot of those artisanal guys that are going to be here,
Yeah.
right? So not all of them necessarily will have the answers to your questions, but there will be some in that farm group. One other thing that flashed in my head, I'm not trying to distract you into a different market, but the first thing that flashed into my head when I was actually listening to you guys yesterday too was cruise lines. So if there's the cruise lines, sometimes you hear about how cruise lines have some infection that spreads through there. So there's a very interesting set of people potentially to talk to about what is the monetary ramifications of having an outbreak like this, because if you're a cruise line, it's on one of your ships, you know that they have that calculated. What does it cost to clean up the ship because they had an infection?
Right.
What does it cost to reimburse people? So that first value piece of what is the value of somebody for this actually. Last one is, did you introduce that to Vital Deal?
Not yet.
Okay, so.
But yeah, we have to.
Yeah.
Vital Deal is a local company that makes retrofits lights with almost UV sort of thing that kills surface bacteria. So
And
they've done
there's
a
some
couple-
limitations to that technology relative to yours, as I understand it, but they're RPI grads, and they're down in the
Tech Park now, but yeah.
And then there's also another company here on Green Island called Asahi Kasei.
Yeah.
And one of the founders of Vital Deal is down there, and it's the same thing. Vital Deal uses the spectrum, and Asahi uses
UV.
EV. So there's some stuff right there.
Yeah, it's gonna, they would have gone
Maybe
through,
not, it could be complicated.
but I bet you, yeah, they've gone through like the same sort of customer discovery. So they'll know the pains, like they go to hospitals and they try to sell their stuff.
Yeah, so they've went through the whole process.
They've gone through the whole process, but yours may be cheaper. Like, yours may be easier to implement. Yours, theirs displaces a janitorial staff member, which could be good or could be bad. Like, so who knows? So you guys, competition's always good, actually.
One of the vital needle fixtures is in the restroom downstairs, so if you want to go through that.
I won't go in there. I don't want your cataracts.
So, I think not to distract you from a different market, but as a parent of a daycare age child, I could definitely go for a wipe that was gonna kill some bacteria and viruses, but not create a superbug in my house. And I'm sure they could go with that in the daycare facility itself, right? Because it's a huge problem.
Yeah.
If one kid with hand, foot, mouth disease, I think that happened 4 or 5 times this summer in our daycare.
Yeah.
That's a great point, thank you.
Yeah, you get some angry parents that would demand those
When
wipes.
I pick up my kid, she's got a red eye, I could go for a wipe and then just like,
But with your technology, you can predict if your kid's going to get that, so you're fine. I wouldn't worry. Right. All right. One more quick question.
So as I understand your product, it's like it's a way of killing antibiotics and bacteria with live viruses, right? Is that what it is? So with this bacteria you guys are targeting, do like bleach still kill that bacteria in like conventional cleaning stuff? Or is it more in the body what you're talking about?
So would conventional stuff kill it? Like if you put concentrated bleach on these antibiotic-resistant strains, would they still die, or they're not going to die?
Basically, I mean, if you put concentrated enough bleach on anything, it will die. But the issue is that you cannot use bleach everywhere. And then, a lot of people don't want to use bleach, especially, when it comes to more sort of household, or, you don't want to wipe your child with bleach, typically.
Got it. All right, thanks. Got a quick bleach story. So the other day, my sewer line was clogged. So I was pissed. So I took a snake to it, doing the snake, kind of get this thing unclogged. Couldn't get it unclogged. And so I'm whipping the snake back out of the sewer drain. It's nasty, right? And I'm angry. And I get it to the very end, and the snake hits me right here in my open eye. Like, ah! And I couldn't use water. And I was down in this laundry room, so I used bleach on my hands, and then I put it on my face, and I was like, what? So I'm shocked that my eyebrow didn't turn white, because I was like, but I valued cleaning the stuff off my face and killing those germs more than anything. So anyway, that's my bleach story. All right,
Now lift point.
I'll sit down.
All right. Can we get this to be in Adobe here? I could usually use like a little thing.
But it's still gonna be PDF. So is there a display mode or something?
Yeah.
How do you get the display mode? Because it's a PDF. What up, man?
Thank you.
All right. Everybody sign this?
No.
Okay, fire it up.
All right, folks. Again, my name is Zach. I'm Lift Point, providing maintenance automation services for fleets. Problem that we're solving is around maintenance technicians and the number of hours effectively that they have in a year available in the whole market. So the supply of technicians. Big challenge is recruiting and retaining automotive technicians. Wages are stagnating. Training schools are declining in enrollment, and new tech turnover is 50%. So the average technician who comes into the industry leaves within the first year. Retiring baby boomers projected to increase the shortage from about 25 to 40,000 today to over 200,000 within 10 years.
And that 225,000, that's about 30% of the total supply. And then existing techs spend about 15 to 20% of their time just inefficiently on tasks that can be automated. So really trying to solve and optimize for the amount of hours that, the supply of maintenance technician hours in the entire industry. Customer, fleet managers first and foremost, in-house maintenance facilities, outsourced maintenance facilities, dealerships, rental companies, those are the big four, and another just key stakeholder that I'll put there is just the technicians themselves, because they have to use the system, they have to trust the system. Market size, so I did this based off of just a number of lifts, the installed base of lifts. So my guesstimate is there's about 600,000 in the installed in the US. 45% of all facilities say that hiring technicians and the technician shortage is the number one barrier to their growth or profitability. So just taking 45% of 600,000 and then saying that, if we can capture 5% of that highest need market, then we'll be in good shape at 13.5 thousand installed, and that will based on my projections, break even within 300 lifts. So that would be a really great place to be. Assumptions. There is a technician shortage, and it's negatively impacting service operations and increasing technician wages. Some people say that there's not actually a technician shortage, or else wages would be increasing much faster. But there's not full consensus there, but most experts say, yes, this is a chronic and growing problem. Improving their efficiency would be able to improve the throughput, how many vehicles they can serve in a year per technician. 2 to 5 minutes of savings per order would be meaningful, to help reduce costs, and also help the technicians make more money just based off the way they're compensated. The technicians would trust the system like the one that I'm developing. These guys are putting 10,000, 20,000, sometimes 60,000 pound vehicles over their head. It can kill you. So they gotta be, they gotta trust the system. Legal and risk, there's a big assumption here that, the industry standards and ANSI standards and OSHA and all those guys will allow me to do this, and allow me to implement the solution. And then the big innovation here actually is not so much on the technical side, but it's on the business model side, moving to an outcomes-based model rather than just selling equipment, you're selling a service. I think there's a big opportunity for that. I just need to validate and have been validating whether or not folks will be willing to pay for a service like that. Questions?
I got a quick question. So, why the lift? And here's my question, right? I agree with all of those assumptions, but I wonder why you focus on the lift side of things. Is there something else about, there's a big problem, right? You outlined it. But is there something else? Are there other things in that industry that we should be going after as well besides, the 2-5% efficiency that you gain with the lift side of things? Are there other big buckets that are out there that you should try to automate as well, or first before this?
Yeah, and
some of the challenges at the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a ton of there actually is lower hanging fruit through telematic services. You can have predictive maintenance where you're not going to send 30% of the cars that you send to the garage because you learn that they don't actually need maintenance. That type of thing. The reason that I've chosen lifts is because it's a family business type thing. So I have a contract manufacturer who would be interested in this. So, that answer the question? So just some questions. What are the most important tools that you use on a daily basis in the shop? What tools do you use to improve your productivity? How do you think about productivity and efficiency? Where is there a greatest opportunity for growth? How do you think about, for the fleet manager, how do you think about making hardware investments? Would you be willing to replace? Also, how would you think about paying for service rather than just paying upfront for the equipment? For a technician, tell me about workplace conditions, safety, biggest concern of safety in the shop. What causes you the most strain? How do you deal with it? So on and so forth. One of the big benefits that I've heard about in talking with technicians is that it's a job that puts a lot of stress on your body. You're bending down, you're getting under vehicles, you're picking up tires, all this stuff. It's bad for your back. It's not good for your neck. These guys think that 3.5 out of every 100 technicians have a significant injury every single year that they take significant time off for. So this solution that I'm envisioning would help them deal with that and reduce that risk.
One of the questions you could add to that, since you're trying to make things more efficient, save time, just ask, what do they spend the most time on? You know, weave that in. Because so you're saving time on the lift, like I think to Jim's point, you're saving time on the lift, great. But if that's 2 minutes out of a 2-hour job, that's a nothing.
Yeah.
So what do they spend most of their time on, and can you affect change there?
Yeah. So it's the lift itself is for a sedan, it's 2 minutes out of an average 60 or 75 minute job. For other vehicles like a step van for UPS, 5-8 minutes out of a 70-90 minute job. And then actually dispatching, like the software side of this, like once there's autonomous vehicles, they spend 13 minutes on getting the vehicle onto the lift, including the lift side.
So you may, I mean, that sounds like market segmentation right there. So you may want to just hone in on those that have the biggest point of pain.
Exactly.
You know?
Yep.
And the people that are lifting sedans, like, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, those guys have throughput, right? Yeah. So those guys are servicing 8 vehicles a day. Yeah. So it's not increasing their throughput as much as the guy who might have. Well, actually, I don't know. There's a balance, right? Because the guys who have the step vans, they're only putting 3 or 4 lifts up on the lift, so it's not as profitable. But maybe it is because of the amount of time you're saving. So
can you also get at, and I don't, you might know the answer already, but billing of that stuff. So how do they bill for lifting? Is that explicitly in my bill when I go in and get a muffler change? Is that I see this charge. What is built into that, and is the lift cost built in?
I mean, they have a shop rate, and so all the equipment, all the overhead, the heat, and the technician, that's all built in the shop rate. But they're not charging on it. These guys pay $4,500, sometimes less, for a lift that will last 7 years. So it's not a huge cost, right? But there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. So again, look at question 3 and just see how you can break that out more, because routine maintenance is a great question, right? What are those activities? How long do they take?
Yep.
Thinking about the market that you're going after, this isn't my garage, right? This is a fleet, it's got the same kind of cars. So if there's pieces that you can go after that are repetitive maintenance, that do the same brakes all the time, takes an hour, car, I think there's a big opportunity in that as well.
Yep. The other interesting thing that I'll just add here is that I'm trying to break down the industry barrier here between what a lift does and what the technicians do. So the market for lifts, I think, is probably about a 200 to 300 for 2 posts. It's $200 to $300 million market annually. But the amount of savings that you can get just by saving 2 minutes on every job is 5 times that. So it's trying to look at the industry in a different way, breaking down those barriers.
This is kind of a silly question. Do lifts ever cause damage to cars?
Oh yeah.
Is there something that you could also, so this is going to save time, right? But could it also save you money by not damaging cars by lifting it in a smarter way?
Yep.
Or slightly different?
Yeah, I mean this they drop them. There's deaths every single year because, and it's usually, I mean, one of the arguments of this is it improves safety, because usually when there is a death in the industry because a car falls off, it's because some guy didn't put it on properly. He didn't get it in the right point under the car. And so this, it's kind of like, do I trust the system to do it for me? I don't trust computers, but we know that just like autonomous vehicles, there's less accidents with autonomous vehicles than folks out there.
So like maybe based on the car type, you were talking about a computer system that's in this too, right? So maybe based on the car type, your lift knows where to lift the car, and maybe even has force sensors that say, like, this is unbalanced, it's going to fall.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, kind of along the same lines I was thinking. So if you know the car type and you know the lift points, then you should be able to get pretty much like the lug nut pattern and the lug nut location. And another thing that I would almost target would be most common thing that people bring a car in for is probably oil change, brake change,
right?
Like that. So
yep.
On a brake change, you need to take all 4 of them off. That'd save a ton of time if you already have the reference points.
what are the lugs like on the
On your
top?
wheel.
On the
So,
okay.
yeah, you have your, so you have your lug nuts on there, and that's where you have to take off, take your wheel off.
Right.
To expose the rotor and to expose the caliper. So if you know where those lift points are, you should be able to at least get in the realm of where those lug nuts are. And then you should be able to take off all 4 tires, probably with the lift.
Oh, yeah. All right.
So it's just about to have that.
Yeah.
You're pretty sure you know where everything on the car is.
Yeah, the tires are taken off with a drill.
You put it in half wrench, but you can pretty much automate that.
I think he's saying, what are those non-value added things that you're doing as you do the maintenance? Again, I think it's that question 3.
Yeah.
All right, one more.
And something else I just thought of, like with the safety you're talking about, and even with the making things faster. I was working on another startup, and I realized unless you can like put a pretty concrete, like movable value, you're gonna save on that.
Yeah.
I'm not really that interested. Clint kind of said that before.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Yeah, I've got anywhere from 25 cents to $2 per service as savings depending on the vehicle type and the technician salary. So I totally agree. So you gotta have something to walk in with. So.
All right. I think that's the last one, right? Anybody else? Oh, you guys, okay. Do you have a presentation? There you go. Okay, here we go.
And so we're the curb, the parking app. The problem came about with street sweeping zones that where we lived, we had once a month we had to move our car for street sweeping. And trying to remember to move the car or get a $50 ticket. So problem is receiving and paying for parking tickets, worry over getting the parking ticket, unsure of parking restrictions. You're not sure if, when you park on the street if there's a if you have to move your car in 2 hours or if there's going to be like in downtown Troy, you've got once a week there's 3 hours that you're not allowed to park there. And the city of Denver, so most of our market research was done in Denver where we're living. The city of Denver made $30 million in 2016 on parking fines. 6.9 million of that was just on street sweeping alone. Our customers are going to be people who park in urban areas frequently, residents of those areas, and also commuters who drive downtown and park daily. We've got the users that will be using the app, as well as how we make money with the app. Our customers could then be people buying the data on the back end or selling the app at the end.
So I couldn't find an exact number, but there's a pretty cool visual in my, I think I took the link in here. No, it's good. Oh, it's hard. Oh, it's not showing on this.
Yeah, no, it's weird.
So this visual, why? Continue. So this is basically, I'm in the way of myself, showing us, I should have taken a screenshot. I realize it's hard to navigate. But this is a visual that, so governing took census data from the last census from 2010. And it's showing us basically, the dots are indicating vehicles per household. So the darker the dot is actually the fewer vehicles per household. And it's just showing it for cities that have 50,000 or more people in population. So the idea is that we could hopefully scale our app and make it usable to potentially any of these cities. So we don't have a hard number, but it's kind of a way to visualize sort of the potential total market. And then
let's see. We analyzed more specifically Denver's Capitol Hill neighborhood.
and there's 20,000 residents in that neighborhood, and of those 20,000, 75% have access to at least one car. So we figured that there was, in that small area, we had 15,000 potential users of our app.
This is so weird. 'Cause you got two screens here.
Yeah. Can you go to the bottom?
Well, I'm trying to.
Okay.
Just do it again. Alright, that's brute force. Brute force this thing, Richard.
Oops.
You got it?
Oops, it was. Alright. Okay, cool.
Oh, man.
Thanks for the technical. So some of our assumptions, we have some pretty big ones. So people hate parking tickets. And I originally had it, people don't like parking tickets, but we really assume that like people, it like gets at them, stresses them out. But also that they want a solution for this problem. And then specifically for that solution to be an app on their phone. The other kind of thing we've talked about is that if you're not somebody that would be frequently parking in downtown areas or urban areas, you just come to the toy farmers market once a month or something, will you actually remember that you have this tool and this resource to use? So kind of getting people to come back and use the app often. So people will contribute data. It's going to be quite a task for us to actually build a database that shows the rules and restriction information for the specific streets in each of the cities we roll out to. So one of the ways where you're talking about doing that is actually user input data. So we're assuming that people will want to give us this information, input the parking rules and restrictions for the streets. And then we kind of assume the street parking rules won't change often or very frequently. They will of course change, but we're assuming that it's not going to be so often that our data gets stale quickly. Questions were asked. We're actually excited to go to Toy Farmers Market. I think it's a great opportunity for us, and a lot of people that this could be relevant to. So we just want to get people talking. Do you own a car? Do you drive a car? Of course, if people don't, if they take public transportation or ride their bike, it's not going to be relevant to them. So kind of starting there. And then to expand, do you utilize street parking? Have you received a parking ticket? Tell us about that experience, what happened, how did it make you feel? How do you currently solve those problems? How do you remember to move your car today? How does that worrying, that stress affect your life? What specific parking situations bother you? This question was kind of to try to open up, like, are there other problems out there that we could look to solve that we're not necessarily looking at right now? And we'll ask everyone if we're considering like standing near the parking garage, because we know those will be people that go to the farmers market. Nothing.
I think this is a really cool idea. It's something that I can park myself.
Yeah.
And I don't want to. So one of the things I was thinking is, I think in this process you have to troll some of the government sites to find out where parking is, right?
Yeah.
So on those government sites, I think you'd be able to find other things that people would be interested in that you have to go to a web to find. So for instance, like bus routes, right? If your app also had bus routes, places you can park, like parking, free parking lots, free parking spots, are there lights around? So like, it may, while you're trolling for this data, essentially your app is to troll for this data and make it accessible to people, all different types of forms.
Yeah, like lighting would be good. Like, if you're a single female or something in a sketchy area, it's like, where's the nearest light that I could park under or something like that.
So I also really like this idea, and it's something that makes me anxious when I go to a new place and I don't know if I'm going to be able to find parking, how long it's going to take. And so I just wanted to mention that I just love the idea of being able to, I don't know if this is what you had mentioned or not, but being able to input the time when you need to park for. So if I come to a new place, I can just say, okay, I need to be here from 5 to 7, and I see the map of all the areas that are parking available from 5 to 7, for example. That's something that I would personally want. And a few other quick comments. One thing, I don't know if you know the app Gas Buddy.
I know of it, yeah.
So that's an app where you had mentioned you would need to get the data contributions updated frequently, and the parking rules are updated. Gas Buddy is one of those things, of course, gas prices, like they can change during the day, but it's still a successful app because so many people are willing to contribute because I think they have like a rewards program in it. So just maybe
There's an app called Waze too for traffic, and that's all user input data every day. So.
Yeah.
And then I just one. Oh, and then the other thing that I wanted to mention is that I think that a lot of parking now is switching to doing it online. So if I'm like instead of using, is this only for free parking or is this also metered parking?
It's going to be for free street parking, and potentially parking meters. That's going to be something we're going to build applications parking meters. But yeah, there's a lot of apps already for the parking garages and the paid parking areas.
I was thinking too, like, I mean, there are some other parking apps out there, but they're just not very dynamic. I think that's why a lot of people don't use them. But maybe like we have a feature where it can tell you how risky the spot you're parking is. So like it can tell you like the time people come through and check it, or if the spot gets a lot of dents. It'd be a really cool feature.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. So I know nothing about this, but if you're relying on people to input information for it to be updated, and say it isn't updated, and somebody uses your app and it says that they're safe, and it hasn't been updated, and you're wrong, what are the legal ramifications of that?
Part of the user agreement is going to be that you check the sign of the area you're parking and verify that this is the correct zone.
But even if it is the correct zone, and for some for some reason the city law changes or something, and the new data input hasn't been put in, so it's referring back to the old law. So your app knows that they're in the right spot. I mean, to the user, everything has been perfect. It's just it hasn't been updated, so they're put under the false impression they're safe, but realistically they're not. How could that affect you?
Well, I guess what I'm thinking is that if they park in an area and the app says, okay, you're parked in a zone, you need to move by 8 o'clock this evening, and then they need to check the sign and verify that that is the correct.
And if these guys gave a guarantee with their product, then there could be some liability. But if they don't give any guarantee, it's like, it's only as good as the latest data. Then they're going to have a pissed off user, but that's about it.
It's like GPS isn't seasonal roads.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think a little bit of the problem, right, is this chicken or egg, right? You need folks on the app to collect data.
Yep.
But you got to update it on the app, right? So I think a little bit about, I think about like when you go someplace now, Facebook's like, hey, you're at Target, is it really open from 10 to 6 or something? See if there's some other way you can leverage a way to collect the data ahead of, same kind of thing on a Facebook perspective. I mean, maybe when you're someplace, you can buy, no one's going to want the ad space that's landing on the sidewalk in Troy, right? So maybe you can leverage some of that to be able to collect that data, say, hey, is this, what's the parking requirements here, or something like that. Scrubbing is an option, but maybe a difficult option, right? Because, different areas, policies and things like that.
Yeah.
All right, we got to wrap it up. One thing I'm just thinking for you guys, if you want to have some fun, you go ask the question like, hey, did you park on the street today? Yeah. Then you come with a cop hat. Get over here. And that'll give you the real experience to see if they don't like parking tickets. All right. Take 5 minutes and we'll come back, we'll hit it, and we'll hit the streets, all right? All right. Oh yeah.
So the word I got is make sure they know no solicitation.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Don't camp out in front of a booth. Because the booth people have to
Good point. Okay. I'll tell them those two things. Awesome. Yeah, I know. You've seen her. That's right. All right, buddy. Thanks. Yeah. We'll do it again soon. All right. So you got
Yeah, we felt that. It's virtual, so another.
set up sort of like little workshop things for the teams. So that, you come, whenever you can come, whatever that day is, I'll advertise it to the teams. Hey man, I got somebody here who's gonna help you out with this, that type of.
You wanted to throw out some areas or where you could use help? That'd be good too. Say like, hey, I need somebody help with this.
Right. I don't know yet because we haven't even had our first meeting. So our first meeting is Tuesday. Okay. Change the locations, but okay. I'll know more then.
All right.
All right.
See ya.
Thank you. What is the story
value proposition, and does it speak to these customer segments? So some of you guys will find real customer segments down there. Some of you guys will have to sort of wing it. So, but you want to try to test to see if you're giving value to these customers, and if they have a need that you're filling with with your product or service. Okay. So what do you do for your customers that they value? What really matters to your customers? And you guys just went through presentations and you listed some questions. They look pretty good already, so we won't belabor that point. But there's different values, you know, lower cost, simpler, better distribution, better bundling, better marketing, positioning. There's so many things that people value and all of you guys have sort of you're going to develop unique value propositions for each one. There's also various target markets, like you know, several of you talked, like, you know, like lifting, you know, maybe lifting sedans is one thing, but lifting heavy trucks is another thing. That's a different market segment altogether. It's a different type of lift, for example. Then there's end users, customers, influencers, things like that. All of these are going to be important. The customer is the one that's going to pay you money, though, so that's the most important one. And also, as I've sort of stressed throughout, try to follow the money. So how does the customer actually buy? So somebody's going to write you a check. How does that money flow to you? So you got to understand that kind of stuff. Today's exercise is really all about this. Try to see if you have a product market fit. Just did all this stuff, problem that you're trying to solve, for whom, what kind of competition is out there. Don't worry if you have competitions. It's not a bad thing. It just means that, hey, it's a market that exists. That's good. Find out what that competition is doing wrong. Find out, you know, look at their blogs and stuff like that. Oh, in fact, so this is a common mistake. So here's a guy that he was he in Ignite or anything?
Yeah, so he was in the program. Actually, the company he's about to talk about, see that whiteboard film that's on the wall? So it's called ThinkBoard is the name of that company, and there are a couple of local entrepreneurs, and they got spotlighted in Entrepreneur Magazine.
Yep. So
the article is relevant.
Yeah. So pretty cool. The dude came up with, hey man, I need a whiteboard for my room, but I can't put screws in the wall. So what do? Well, you have a ThinkBoard. So there it is. It's like this portable sort of whiteboard that you can use and stick on your wall. He told customers on his website or whatever they buy, hey, it's only going to work on this type of wall. You know, if you have a stucco wall, if you have a rough painted wall or something like that, a stone wall, it's not going to stick, okay? So you know, just be aware of that, and then people buy it, and then they stick it on a stone wall or a brick wall, and the freaking thing falls off. What do? Call him? Well, probably, but they also blog about it, write about it, talk badly about it. So his sales went down because he told everybody about it in advance, but they used it improperly. They didn't care. They were like, "You're stupid. I'm gonna write bad things about you." This same thing happened to me. So we had some night vision material, the stuff that you spread on the ground, and you can see it with night vision goggles if you hit it with a UV light. So pretty specific. You guys, the customers, you need a UV light that we also sell, and then you can see this paint or the sand that we make with night vision goggles, generation 3, so they have to go together. It's like a lock and key mechanism. You have to buy the whole system. What do you think happened? People didn't use the whole system. Hey man, I bought this night vision paint, this shit doesn't glow. What the hell? Like it doesn't, no, it's not gonna just glow. It defies the laws of physics. Nothing just glows. It's gotta have some energy associated with it. It doesn't gotta just, oh, I bought this paint, it doesn't glow. Like, yeah, you're a dumbass. I told you, don't buy this. It's not gonna just glow for you. People don't listen. You can put that all over your website, everything else. Like this poor guy, hey, don't stick it on brick. It's not gonna work. Doesn't matter. Hey man, it didn't work on brick. This stuff sucks. So anyway, I always say never underestimate the stupidity of customers. But anyway, don't go in with that attitude because they're the ones that are going to be paying. Going to do a quick exercise on this. This is a value proposition canvas. So this is something that's sort of new to me, but it really gets in to trying to home in on what your true value proposition is. Here's sort of the value that you think you bring. Here's sort of the customers over there. And you can have some gains. I'll show you a quick video on this. It could be giving a customer something of benefit. It could be solving some sort of pain that they're having. And then you got to look at the customer's jobs. Each one of those jobs may have a different pain point, may have a different view of what the gain is. So your value proposition has to, you know, create gains or relieve pains, and then what is your product or service? So let me get right into it.
Every day, companies design products and services to improve their customers' lives. But 72% of new product and service innovations fail to deliver on expectations. This means that customers don't care about 7 out of 10 new products introduced to the market. It doesn't have to be this way. Just like you create value for your business with a business model canvas, there is in fact a tool to intentionally visualize, design, and test how you create value for customers. It's called the Value Proposition Canvas. The Value Proposition Canvas is composed of 2 parts, the customer profile and the value map. With the customer profile, you describe the jobs your customer is trying to get done. Jobs can be functional, like getting from A to B, social, like impressing friends and colleagues, or emotional, like gaining peace of mind. You highlight your customers' pains, which annoy customers while trying to get a job done. Pains and negative outcomes that customers hope to avoid, like dissatisfactions with existing solutions and challenges, frustrations, risks, or obstacles related to performing a job. And you outline customer gains, which describe how customers measure the success of a job well done. Gains are positive outcomes that customers hope to achieve, like concrete results, benefits, and even aspirations. Use the customer profile to visualize, test, and track your understanding of the people or companies you intend to create value for. It's a map that becomes clearer the more you learn about your customers. The second part of the canvas is the value map. With it, you list the products and services your value proposition builds on. You describe in which way these products, services, and features are pain relievers, how they eliminate, reduce, or minimize pains customers care about, making their life easier. And you outline in which way they are gain creators, how they produce, increase, or maximize outcomes and benefits that your customers expect, desire, or will be surprised by. The value map makes explicit how your products and services relieve pains and create gains. Use it to design, test, and iterate your value proposition until you figure out what resonates with customers. You achieve fit by creating a clear connection between what matters to customers and how your products, services, and features ease pains and create gains. Great value propositions target essential customer jobs, pains, and gains, and do so extremely well. Your customer profile may contain countless jobs, pains, and gains, but your value map highlights which ones you intend to focus on. But don't forget, an outstanding value proposition can still fail if your business model is flawed. Successful companies embed outstanding value propositions in scalable and profitable business models. Use the value proposition canvas to create products and services that customers want. Get started at strategizer.com.
All right, that makes sense? Hey, Richard, how'd you work your magic on this to get it back?
You just rub it over there.
I always rub it the wrong way. All right, so we are going to look at the pain, what the customer problem is, and any sort of gain. What kind of solution can we give? So reduce or eliminate wasted time, cost, negative emotions, risk. You know, all kinds of things can be a pain for your customers. Each of you guys are going to have a different customer, and they're each going to be suffering different sorts of pain, different level of pain. And you got to sort of try to figure out what your product or service brings that could relieve some of these pains. Is it cost savings? Just makes them feel better. There's some sort of solution that they're in search of. They're suffering through some sort of pain, quality issues, etc. So figure that out. And these are going to be things you can test when you go downtown also. So are you solving a problem, or are you fulfilling a need for who, and how do you know? So another big difference is solving a real problem versus satisfying a need. If you're solving a problem, that's going to be a much sort of higher value proposition than just be nice to have sort of thing, you know. So, you know, getting at sort of the level, the degrees of pain are going to be important as well. Gain creators also. So how can you have them have positive motion, cost savings, more efficiency, all kinds of things like that are gain creators. So how does your product create savings for them, produce a better than expected result, all kinds of different ways to give your target customer some sort of gain that they could benefit from. So a value proposition is not just a list of features like, oh, the value that I give is, XYZ, some sort of list of attributes for your product. That's not what a value proposition is. A value proposition is something that will clearly describe why a customer is going to pay you money. So it's not just, yeah, my widget is better and brighter, and that's meaningless. So it's got to have my value that I bring saves 60% of the manufacturing time and cost, which saves my customer a lot of time and money. You know, those type of things are more like what a value proposition should be. Here's a quick example of my company. So my company, Self-Array, you can look in the window of it. If you go to the bathroom, if you go to the men's room, not the ladies' room, men's room, and then sort of turn around, that's where our office is. So we have a company, in a nutshell, every display that you've ever seen has pixels on it, red, green, and blue pixels. This is a liquid crystal display, and you know, basically there's a big filter in the back of that, and it allows a certain amount of red, green, and blue light that comes out of every tiny pixel. You can look at the pixels. If you get up really close, this is actually such a crappy projector, you can see the pixelation. So you can see the pixelization in here. So every screen has a pixel. That's how they do the multicolored displays. What we do is we make pixels out of LEDs directly. So we use dust-sized LEDs, literally, and we wire each of them up. So why do we do that? We give value to our customers. So suppose the customer segment is the large indoor display manufacturer. Have you been to the Apple store in the mall? Or any Apple store? First thing you see when you walk in nowadays is their big ass display. They got a 30-foot display in basically every Apple store. That was made by a large indoor display manufacturer. There's a dozen or so in the world that make these kind of displays. That display cost $1.5 million, and it took 3 months to make. So we can make it much quicker and make it much cheaper. So we make inexpensive, small pitch, and we do it super fast by using chip on board enabling this small pitch technology. So we could get a lot more LEDs packed in. The LEDs that we use are cheaper, so it is inexpensive, and that's a point of pain for our customers. And getting into smaller pixel pitches is also a point of pain. Be ahead of the curve, the first mover advantage, if you could get to this. So one of the gains is we're going to open new markets for this indoor display manufacturer, because we can make the displays, instead of having to make a 30-foot display, we can shrink it down to a 20-foot display. We can make it cheaper, we can make it brighter, we can make it faster. So those are sort of this is how I would make our value proposition canvas. That's for a large indoor display manufacturer. Suppose one of the other customer segments is a TV enthusiast whose real goal, he wants to become the king of the Super Bowl. So he wants to have all of his friends over, have the biggest, brightest, latest technology television set there is. And there's actually quite a few people out there that are like this. He's a tech leader for TV technology. Everybody has OLEDs and LCDs. He wants to be the king. How do we solve that? Well, we could give him the first mover advantage for tapping into that market, because we enable this new television display to be made quicker, cheaper, better, faster for the display manufacturers to get it down to a price point where we can hit. So these are sort of rough ideas of how you could do one of these value proposition canvases, and you're going to have different ones for different customer segments, because each one has different values. Value chain. So where does your product fit? So again, this is a picture of the display at an Apple store. And basically, if you look, so it looks like this, but if you look close, all of these displays are made in panels. So there's a bunch of panels that are tiled together. Each of those panels has a whole array of LEDs. So it's a whole array of these pixels that make up the panel. And then there's a bunch of electronics that go behind it. So what my company does is we only make this panel. We make this front panel electrically connected. We don't do anything with the electronics. We don't do anything with the overall sales of the end display or setting it up in a store. So this gets at where we are in the value chain. So we are a part, we are a subsystem or a component that goes to a bigger system, that goes to a panel, that goes to a manufacturer to make these entire displays. So we ain't selling the displays, we're selling a portion that goes into the final display. Every one of you guys may have the same sort of thing. How do you fit in this whole value chain? So we can do it in minutes, B2B sales, etc. So where does your product or service fit? Who is your customer for this? A little bit. And what does your company care about, etc. So we're going to do this value proposition breakout. I'll put back up there on the screen that value proposition canvas. We're not going to spend 45 minutes on it. We'll just spend like 5 minutes on it. Figure out a target segment that you want to hit, and then fill out the value proposition canvas. This will help you really nail down what your value proposition is. Okay. So grab a piece of paper. Let me get to. Okay. Sort of sketch that out on a piece of paper and go at it. And we'll report out in a few minutes. All right, let's see. Looks like I'm having a neighborhood party at my house. Well, we usually have like cookout or something in the summer. Yeah. But I had another one. Yeah, it's got a another one. Dude, we haven't seen him all summer. So I'm like, all right, I got two impromptu neighborhood parties. So gotta go on my way home, go home and get a bunch of stuff. It's easy to draw.
Are the questions are to fill out each of these boxes or no?
Yeah, just figure out like, for your particular customer, what gives them some sort of, what gives them a gain based on your product, So, like residential solar cell people, the gain is they don't have to put it on the roof, something like, and there could be a ton of gains, and you really just got to figure out which are the biggest gains, which are the ones that need value most. You'll find that.
So they go down to the, they can be now. So I was thinking some folks don't want to.
Trevor, they make it into your office. So then they get Richard and I are going
Is the outside door open?
I don't know.
Keep score.
to that sort of relationship phone call. Market studies was determined that people wanted to take a share of their law. This is a great opportunity for you to actually get in and talk to us. You shouldn't fear.
It's also really targeted too. It's not just like a blanket. Like, people that are doing stuff anyway, see more shit out of So this is that anything that might have
Okay, guys, let's bring it on back, okay? So there's a, as you guys have noticed, there's sort of a fine line between pains and gains, depending on how you word it. They can either be a pain or a gain, you know? So it's really all about capturing what the value proposition is, getting at what kind of value do you bring to your customer. That's what this whole exercise is about. So let's keep on trucking. All right. Okay. So what we are going to do is you guys take sort of your assumptions there. So you got some target customers. They have some pains that you can solve. They have some gains that you can give them based on your technology, your product. Now you're going to have to synthesize some questions to go out and ask people. Okay? So you guys already came up with some questions and things earlier today. You had those in your presentation. So let's start with those. But anything that you just learned now, like kind of diving into the pains and gains of your customers, include those as sort of target questions as well that you can go hit the streets with. Okay. So we're going to go and. Oh, okay. So let me just get at sort of more of the logistics details. On Monday, we're going to have a midweek conference call. We'll set this up. I'll give you guys an email about when your call is going to be. Each team is going to present their interview findings of what you found, downtown today. You're going to hopefully get out and go talk to other customers as well, like real customers, and talk to us on Wednesday. I'll send this around via email. I want a 3-page document that you send in. Page 1 describes what you're testing, the questions that you use, who do you interview, what do they say, and even provide literal quotes. So when you guys are walking around today and in the future talking to customers, make sure there's a note taker. And like Matt said yesterday, when you're done with the interview, don't immediately interview somebody else. Write down more notes, what you learned, because you won't be able to take notes fast enough. Write down all that stuff, and then talk amongst yourselves, and then go hit it again. So take some time in between these interviews to document that stuff, because I can guarantee you're going to hear something, then you're going to hear that same something, and it's not something you thought about, and that same something, and you can develop a pattern where it's like, man, these guys, they really value X. I didn't even think about that, but I could do a little pivot and get at that every single customer I talk to. With my company, we thought taking the manufacturing time from 3 months down to 5 minutes, that's the value. That's a huge value. When we started talking to customers, they were like, that's cool. But man, if you could get our source LEDs, because there's 24 million LEDs, you multiply anything by 24 million, that's a lot of money. If you could reduce the price of even the red or the green or the blue or all of them, if you reduce that price times 24 million, that's the value. I don't care if it takes me 3 months. They cared less if it took 3 months. So we were shocked. And we found that out probably 10 customers in, because 10 customers told us the same thing. And at first we were like, whatever, the cheaper LEDs, whatever. I don't know what to do with that. Okay, so my manufacturing process was very fast, But then if you look back at your stuff and you're like, holy cow, everybody said that same thing. And then we thought, oh geez, we can reduce the price of these LEDs. I know how to do that. Okay. So you'll be surprised with what you find out, okay? Take notes. 3-page PDF for Wednesday. Just, basically these kind of things. Any sort of revised business model, canvas, any sort of things that you learned, stuff like that. And then finally, your draft budget. Like I said at the close of stuff yesterday, a great thing to do with the NSF money is to go to a conference. That's easy for us to do. That's encouraged by NSF. If there's any sort of conference that you guys can go to, I mean, really, it's all about talking to customers. So conferences are great. Trade shows, more particularly. Not a real geeky technical conference, but more of a trade show where everybody on the floor is trying to sell something. That's a great target group to go to. Yeah.
As far as the trade shows, have you found in the past that if you say from a university that would be like a decrease in price?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely use that. So say you're from a university, hey man, can I get a student discount? Hey, I'm only going to be there for a day. Hey, I'm funded by NSF. I'm just doing some exploration. There's all kinds of ways you can get in. Yeah. And the other thing is, a lot of these trade shows, the trade show floor is free. So some trade shows have an associated sort of tech program that you can go to. Screw the tech program. You guys want to go down the trade show floor and see who's selling stuff in your target market. So oftentimes those are freebies, okay? But getting there might not be free. It might be in LA or something like that. So look for trade shows. Put that in your budget because we want you to spend this money quickly and get to trade shows and stuff, okay? After that, we have another Wednesday phone call the week after. So not this Wednesday, but the week after that. There's a 2-pager. I'll send you guys this information. The phone call is going to be a 10-minute call. Hey, how'd it go? What's happening? What'd you learn? What do you need help on? That kind of stuff. So we are here to guide you through this. So now that you guys are starting to see them, get out there with the stoves and just start practicing. But let us know what's going on because we can help. We've been there before. So that's what this is all about. NSF requires us to force you guys to talk to customers. It's a pain in the ass, you know, like your product, like what the hell, man? How do you talk to people about freaking modeling shit? Really? Can I just talk to 3 customers? No, you can't just talk to 3 customers. You have to talk to a lot, and I'll let it slide. You could talk to customers that may not actually eventually buy. You know, you just talk to a lot of people, you know, trying to get some validation. But for all of these sort of things, we have some gates. So I think for Wednesday's phone call, you got to talk to 10 customers. Okay, if you talk to some relevant customers down here, you can get 10 customers in the next, hour. And then speak to 15 customers by the next week. Our goal is to ultimately get you guys up to 30 customers. You join the national program for NSF, it's 100 customers. And they won't give you credit for talking to customers in the past. So you hit the streets running in that program. Okay? In 3 weeks, we have another cohort, October 6th, we have another cohort meeting. I believe it's here. Again, I'll send this all out. For that meeting, 10-minute presentation, 5-minute Q&A, we'll get into more of the business model canvas. The first days here are doing value prop and customer segments and validating those. If you ain't got those, it doesn't matter what your revenue stream is. You don't have a product. So you got to get these things first before we go fill out the rest of the canvas. So then I'll lecture at this time on the rest of the canvas and all the other organs of the company that need to exist for it to be an actual viable company. But again, you can read this. I'll send this out. It's actually posted on the Dropbox or the Google Drive right now. All that stuff that we're going to need for that one. So let's get out of the building and go talk to the Troy Farmers Market folks. You guys already have a set of questions. I'm going to review those with each team before I cut you loose out of here. I want to make sure you have pencil and paper and a note taker and who you're going to talk to. After talking to 2 strangers, come back and talk to me. So I'm going to try to set up right outside Bootleggers on Broadway, and I just want to see how it went. Hey, how did it go? What was the process that you used, etc. If you need my phone number, here it is, 518-928-7958. So if we get lost, separated, whatever, give me a call, and I will find you, and then we will bond. And if you're sometimes I've seen people standing over under a tree, huddled, not knowing what to do at all. It's fine. Other people have done the same thing. It's scary to go talk to strangers. It's freaking weird. It's weird to talk to strangers. You're going to talk to strangers. It's going to help your dating game. You'll be so invincible. You can go right up to anybody. Hey, let's talk. Do some customer discovery. Okay, here's a little script for you guys to use. We've already talked about this. Hey, I'm a student at RPI, Siena, Skidmore, wherever, and I'm working on an NSF-funded project. And I really need to pick your brain about this market because I'm really studying this market. And I can tell by your jersey that you're wearing that you like sports. So you really want to start a conversation. I don't want you to say, hello, I am Joe. I am at NSF. I like school. I am a student. Like, no, they will be like, what the hell is this robot talking to me for? It's just, try to make a new friend. Your goal should be try to make a new friend. Hey man, how's it going? I'm a student, blah, 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 blah. So, also sort of kiss their butt a little bit. I know you are a market expert. You guys, I mean, there's a cheese company down there and they got mold, bacteria and stuff all over it, and they deal with it as a matter of course. You know, hey man, you cheese manufacturer, you can help me out because I'm trying to study bacteria and infections and surfaces and contaminations. Can you help me for just a second? Can you give me some advice? So that kind of thing. Couple dangers. You know, of course, don't sell. You're not selling anything. If they see that you look like you're selling something, somebody will kick you out. And don't occupy the front of the. If you're talking to a store owner, make sure there's nobody there. If somebody's buying cheese at the cheese place, be like, hey, I just want a minute of your time. If you have a customer, you deal with it first. You know, like I don't want to interrupt your flow because those guys are all there to sell stuff. So don't stand right in the middle of it. Like you win guys. You know, you got a whole team. Like, hey, you're not going to sell any tomatoes now because I'm going to occupy your space for 20 minutes talking about win. Don't do that. They will ask you to kindly move along, okay? So be sensitive to the needs of the shop owners down there, okay? Take time to formulate your questions. Don't read it like a script, like I said, and make the customers feel comfortable. If it's a really, really great customer, ask them if you can follow up with them later. Get their contact information. Maybe you find a patient. I don't know. Like, if you do, get their contact information because that's how you're going to cash in on the free dinner too. And be able to talk to them later. Like, be able to say, hey man, this was so great. Can I call you later once I hone in on my idea a little bit more? Sound good? Bruce, you got anything? Any words of wisdom?
I will go downstairs in a bit too and see if I
Okay.
can snag somebody on the street having heard what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if I see somebody there that you will otherwise wouldn't recognize, then we'll see if we can.
I told these guys I'm going to try to stick around like right on Broadway outside of Bootleggers, just kind of in the middle of the road. So if they have any questions, whatever, they can stop back. Okay.